It is done. I am thou, and thou art I. To you who wields courage enough to spite the futility of his own existence, stand tall and speak my name. My wrathful light shall purge all delusion from this world until naught remains save bleak and maddening truth. The persona beside him was in the shape of a man, spindly-limbed, unnaturally tall, dressed in a pinstripe suit whose fabric seemed more like a hole cut in the world and into dimensions unseen. The stripes coursed and undulated like the patterns across Loki's hide. The face beneath his broad-brimmed hat was a featureless pane of mirrored glass. In one hand he flipped a coin, endlessly, the gesture precise, metronomic, mechanical. In the other he held a black attache case like a slab of polished obsidian. On the side of that case was inscribed a pearly circle, and a single initial, Z. It looked on with neither interest nor pity as Akechi struggled to stand straight again. The flames began to die. Hastur crept back toward them. An awakening here of all places. The voice seemed unperturbed by these latest events, but with Hastur still twitching and snapping from his fresh wounds, it now sounded as though it was coming from somewhere else entirely, an obscene ventriloquist act. You little thieves remain entertaining until the very end, but it matters little. The detective's spirit already wanes. It is as I said. Flames consume themselves, and inevitably they must... A new light shining behind them all. They turned and saw its source. Morgana stood there, his pelt turned iridescent, a veil of prism that spilled forth and beat back the dark. It was the same way he'd looked when Mementos had burst forth from the earth, the light that had turned the tables against Yaldabaoth. See what I said? Without a doubt, Morgana Amamiya is light! Light of hope. The thieves' masks barked as that light washed over them. The grins that several of them bore were downright predatory. Finally! It took me forever to turn this on again. Thanks for buying me time, Crow. He glared up at Hastur. I was born from the hopes of mankind, remember? It'll take way more than a little shadow like this to snuff me out. Hastur loomed. You insufferable speck! A ghastly tide of tentacles bore down on them, an incoming wave of bladed viscera swooping in to crush Morgana flat. And then the air snapped cold, and the tentacles jerked as they were sealed in a gem-like sheen of ice. Ice that ran like liquid down their length and enfolded the grim entirety of Hastur, even as it emitted that wind-up screech and fought to escape the frost's grip. Yusuke and Akira stood side by side, Kamusu Sano and Black Frost looming behind them. I'm sorry for mixing up words in this and the previous chapter, but this is awesome. He certainly makes a big target, Akira remarked. Behind him, Black Frost threw up a rude gesture. Poetic, is it not? Yusuke said. Feel now the chill that permeates whatever malformed tumor you call a soul. The ice splintered as the raving amoebic silhouette of Hastur fresh within, already breaking free. But Akechi straightened and approached, and the persona fell in line with his footsteps. The persona stepped in front of him. With that same animatronic precision, he held up the attached case and snatched his coin out of the air, and fed it into an unseen slot in the case's back. It made a jolly little clatter as it fell in. That Z insignia slid aside with a whir, and bursting out from the black hole it left behind came a gun barrel the color of mercury, and telescoping out to impossible proportions, riddled with lenses and dynamos, and crackling with energy like the heart of a reactor, and as Ryuji swore in shock somewhere behind him, the weapon charged, and flared, light building in its barrel, until it seemed as though the case must have contained its own sun within. The ice fissured and Hastur broke away, but too late. Akechi flung out his hand. Shoot to kill! Zenigata! So that's what his name is. The blast was heralded by a high whistle, like someone calling him home. The light fired out in a single pulse so bright that even as it covered their eyes, the thieves could briefly see their bones through their limbs. Everything turned X-ray, and as the air stank of ozone, the light ripped a hole straight through Hastur's writhing mass. The insectile din it unleashed as its wound was unholy, a harmonic that drove them all to nausea, and its unending limbs thrashed and seized as the whole Akechi had torn in its form extended out, the ridges glowing red like burning projector film. And as Hastur struggled and spasmed and filled their hands with its cacophonic death cries, in moments it had burned away to nothing. There was a hollow thud as some vague shape tumbled from its vaporous remains and struck the shadowy ground, and then silence. Zenigata dispersed. Akechi turned back to them. His new mask was completely opaque. His expression was difficult to discern. Dude, Ryuji breathed. You one-shotted him! He inflicted a similar wound upon Iago earlier, said Yusuke. For all their power, those entities are rather frail. Perhaps that is why they... He was cut off as Haru rushed forward and hugged Akechi, beaming ear to ear. Either he lacked the will or the energy to resist as she pressed him to her chest, laughing brightly. Crow, that was amazing! You saved all of us! Thank you, Noir. Please let me go. I'm feeling a bit unwell. Getting set on fire can do that to you. But you toughed it out. Pretty good awakening, said Akira. He tried to stay deadpan but couldn't hide his grin. 8 out of 10. Easy. Oracle, Mona, what do you guys... He trailed off. Futaba had her console up. Morgana still gleamed like an Ingo. Both their faces were pinched and grim. Morgana's nose twitched. Can't you sense it? We're not done. Yeah, we're not out of the woods yet. Boss battle music on again. Slowly, the Phantom Thieves turned to where Hastur had fallen. The periphery of ravenous dark beyond Morgana's glow. The void had fallen silent again. The telephone hiss. Please stay on the line. Your party will connect shortly. Where that unseen shape had struck the ground, they heard a faint and silky rustle. It lifted itself up, hovering in the air. A simple rectangle crawling with hallucinogenic and chaotic colors. Green, blue, black, yellow, violent gangrenous. On squinted. Is that Iago's book? From the outer dark and within their heads, the voice returned. No speech now, just a low chuckle that rasped across their minds. And it echoed, it multiplied, it became its own audience, and as the book began to convulse, they were enveloped in a hurricane of demented mirth, a yammering cacophony that still did not conceal the visceral tear... Not yet. The visceral tear and crunch emerging from the book itself as it began to open. Sorry about that, the music just kind of changed a bit too early. Try again, and back we go. Corrosive ichor oozed from between its pages and sizzled when it struck the unseen earth, and the laughter seized their brains like clay in clutching hands and squeezed tight. Oh no you don't, Futaba growled. Rise, Prometheus! Her own black sun emerged from the ether, the great seamless sphere threaded with burning pictograms illuminating stolen mysteries. And as the thieves backed away from the book, Prometheus embraced Futaba and carried her up into its innards. The frantic machine gun clatter of her keys drowned out that invasive hysteria with its own rhythm. I will not tolerate any of this Final Form second win extra life bar bullshit! Hold on everyone, I'm about to hit you with every buff I've got! The console flashed red and Futaba raised her fists and smashed down hard. And Prometheus broke open. It configured itself like a puzzle box, and cracked along new seams and consumed them all, the radiance that spilled forth from within. And when that light struck them all, they all felt for a moment as though their limbs would fly off from that new surge of strength. New strength. The book cracked open. Their unseen assailants' laughter rose ever higher. "It's coming," said Morgana. "Fox, you're with me." And the book split. And from the book emerged a tsunami of tentacles, barbed and toothed and blindly seeing. A reeking conglomerate of ichthyoid tissue. This jaundiced accumulation of bone and viscera that crested in the utmost reaches of the void before falling upon them all to rend them limb from limb. And the tentacles shredded. They were seized in a storm of blades and a storm that bore blades within. Yusuke's phantasmal sword and Morgana's cutting gale nodding around them and reducing them to a rain of sea-stinking gobbets and pustulant fluid that dissolved into smoke long before it ever touched them. Disgraceful. You could at least accept defeat with dignity. Yusuke turned to the others and Morgana followed suit. "Queen, I shall leave it in your capable hands." Morgana raised his paw. "Same to you, Panther. Do the Phantom Thieves proud." "That's 2 down." Their palms smacked together and An and Makoto stepped forward, the laughter unabated, the book changing chapters. And from the book emerged a legion of horribles, chained and marble masked with their gently smiling facades cracked and flaked away to show slivers of undulating grotesquerie beneath, flesh that crawled like centipedes, eyes like beetle shells, and the tarry ruin of their flesh. These Quasimodo parodies of Iago, bearing down on them with blades and chains and teeth countless and unseen, and pushing the stench of their decayed pelts before them like ill tidings. Denied! And the legion burned. It was seasoned, twisting knots of flame, red and blue serpentine around them, and the flames were intense enough to reduce bone to ash and ash to atoms. A blaze that threaded through the mob and spread between them like a rumor until not even a wisp remained. On blew the remaining vapor a kiss. Bye now. Frankly, I'm disappointed. Makoto's heel sparked as she turned and approached Haru. Noir, it's on you. An did the same for Ryuji. Do what you do best, Skull. Their hand slap cracked like thunder as the book faltered, then rallied, its loathsome pages turning once more. And from the book emerged abominations without limit, emaciated, ravenous things that danced on the edge of space and sight, things with fangs that grew clean from their bellies, things that shed their own webbed and crippled limbs like maggots as they clawed across the expanse in their blind and hungering need. A decomposing and Tartarian menagerie that stormed towards them like the vanguard of a nation that should have never been. Pwned! And the things broke. The very air turned glassy and they ran into those barriers and were shattered by the rebounded weight of their own terrible momentum, the pressure reverberating through their bones and shells until they burst. And what shattering remains remained were shattered by the strikes of a staff moving with such vicious quickness that it was scarcely seen at all. And as the remains fell like rain, a single projectile sailed gaily through the jobbets and struck the book directly, and erupted in a gout of flame and noise that finally, mercifully, silenced the laughter in an agonized cry and left the book itself smoldering and twitching like a broken-winged moth. 2, 4, 6, 8. Who do we appreciate? Phantom Thieves, bitch! Ryuji fist-pumped. Fucking A! Nice shot, Noir. Thank you, Skull. She pumped the china lake. Let's send this repulsive parasite to hell. They turned, and there were Akira and Akechi. Expectantly, they raised their hands as Ryuji and Haru sauntered toward them. Ryuji's grin was fierce. Reckon, dude. Haru's smile was gentle. I know you can do it. The final hand clap formed a sonic boom that sent all their clothes fluttering and made even the formless shadow tremble. The two of them walked to the book, casually, hands in pockets, as it struggled to right itself. "Hey Crow," said Akira. "I think I got someone who wants to meet the new persona of yours. Do you mind?" "Not at all. Are you ready for this?" "Yeah, let's throw the bucket in." "Couldn't keep that to yourself, could you?" "Not on your life." He stopped. "And I just wanted to say, thanks for saving me. I'm really glad I found you again." "Likewise," said Akechi. "On both counts." They smiled at one another and then turned to the book, faces set. They raised their hands. Their masks blazed. "Pillage him! Arsene! Purge him! Zenigata! Checkmate, motherfucker!" Those hidden pieces of their souls pulled loose and walked free. The two personas continued their master's stride, walking up to the book as it hung smoldering and stunned. When their footfalls stopped, they exchanged a brief glance. They tipped their hats. They appeared to reach an understanding. Then Arsene reached up and tore his waistcoat loose and exposed a raging onyx inferno within that spilled out as an even deeper and more vibrant black than the innards of the despairing realm in which they'd all been sealed. And Zenigata held up his attach case, and the locks popped loose like gunshots, and out spilled a searing white tide of fire that poured across the void and obliterated it like ink being washed off a page. And the flames met. They embraced, the flame that scorched the corrupt and the flame that burned away falsehood. And as the Phantom Thieves watched those twin fires compress into a spear no larger than a marble or a walnut or a grain of sand, until at last it burst free and consumed them all in a soundless silver exhilaration, disturbed only by the book and its infernal voice's final high, despairing cry of dissolution! When the light faded, the world had returned. They were back at the stage on which they had confronted Iago. Neither Shimizu nor his persona were anywhere to be found. There was only the book, lying open and lifeless, burning. Whatever non-Euclidean typography its pages held were obscured and erased by a greasy and stinking flame the height of a man. And within this tarantulasmic sway, they saw a figure, something amorphous, and studded with leering masks. It spoke to them in the crackle and crisp of paper. Its words were in the same smooth and congenial harmonic Hastur had possessed, but they lacked the diabolical potency that forced them into the thieves' minds. It was merely noise. "A splendid performance," it said as they approached. "Truly. From you most of all, detective. Such a pity that we could not have crossed paths earlier." "I disagree," Akechi said tersely. "So it goes, eh?" Yusuke glared. "You seem rather unconcerned about your loss, humiliating though it was." "This is not the first time I have tasted defeat. It is my nature to drive humans to despair. Occasionally, they rally. An unfortunate eventuality, but one I have come to expect." The flame was losing fuel. It shrank before their eyes. Still, you are correct. This is your victory. Another hollow foe is undone. What will the next one be, I wonder? And the next, and the next. The wound from which they spring persists in all your souls, remember? "Bring it," Ryuji said. "We'll kick your ass no matter how many times you come back." "Come back?" "Yes, perhaps I will come back. Another name, another face. There may yet be time for further diversion. But it matters little. More than ever, I know that my ultimate victory is assured. That twist in your souls cannot be banished. Humanity's craving for the end of days grows ever stronger. It took scarcely any effort at all to bring everything to the very edge of ruin. But we pulled back, Makoto said. And we'll keep fighting right until the end. We won't make it easy for you. Maybe platitudes and wishful thinking are all we have left, but those will do for now. The flame was now scarcely higher than their knees. Akira looked down at it impassively. Disappear, he said. You've lost. Ah, such high hopes, burning so brightly. Nothing left but coals now. I look forward to the day when that fire is extinguished forever. But fear not, children of man. When the last feeble embers fade, and darkness enfolds you once more, you will not be alone. I shall remain at your side. For I am thou, and thou art I. The glow faded. The ashes were ashes and nothing more. And then they heard something behind them. A gentle sound, like innumerable wind chimes. Seki Shimizu's captive audience was shedding its chains. The shadow's pain struggle ceased, and the links broke and clattered at their feet. They floated up like untethered balloons, their splayed and sleeping forms turned indistinct, until only that single bright point of light at the core of them remained. But at that moment, they looked out from the stage at a sea of glittering stars. Two figures were seated at the edge of the stage, staring out at that audience void. The one on the right was Shimizu, still in his rags, mask gone, hair spilling over his shoulders. The one to the left was also Shimizu, monochrome and flickering faintly at the edges, dressed in rumpled slacks and vest. A discarded memo pad lay at his side. Is that his shadow? An asked. What's it supposed to be? Futaba rubbed her chin. It doesn't look like much. This place is a theater motif, so a director? A playwright? I believe he is a critic, said Yusuke. One who sees through the sentimental pretensions of the performance and judges its true worth. Or so that may be what he wishes to think. They said nothing to that. Akechi broke away from the group and walked to the two boys, his own shadow stretching lean over them. Morgana called, Guys, look! Ooh. The stage curtain pulled away with an oiled rustle. Behind it was the treasure, a shining golden thread. Akira stepped up to it, treading in the book's ashes as he went. He plucked the treasure from the air, held it between his hands. They all recognized it straight off. It was a thick length of braided gold rope, the kind that might be pulled to raise or lower a curtain. Guess that means the show really is over, Ryuji said. That dry, thin voice. Just take it and leave me alone. Its fuzzed and distorted twin. Acta est fabula. Plaudit. The play is over. 3 cheers! They turned back to Akechi and Shimizu. Akechi stood over them both, staring down, unspeaking. They didn't acknowledge him as he raised his hand to his face and pulled away his mask. It came loose with no effort at all. I'm so scared, said Shimizu. Of everything. I know, said Akechi. And I can't tell you how to make that feeling go away. Everything I tried only made it worse. He sighed. I don't know if there's a way out for people like us. This fear of whatever's in us, or missing in us. That emptiness can be unendurable at times. But Seki, it's so much worse when we're alone. The only time I ever felt any reprieve was when I was around them. First because I forced myself, then because I allowed myself. Even the end of everything can be less frightening if you face it with others at your side. I only learned that because of you. You can follow my example. And you have a head start on me, don't you? There are already people waiting to welcome you back. Shimizu said nothing. Go home, Seki, Akechi told him. Your mother's worried. Nothing for a while. It was Shimizu's shadow that moved first. It placed its hand over Shimizu's own. At its touch, he raised his head. They gazed at each other. Some unspoken affirmation seemed to pass between them. They shimmered like a mirage, and in the moment before they disappeared completely, the shadow transfigured, its outline stretching into something altogether new. Akira put a hand on Akechi's shoulder. They nodded and left the stage. The theater quietly dismissed itself as they moved between the seats, nails and boards popping free and floating up into the void, the seats breaking loose, the carpets and curtains unraveling. The entirety of the palace's architecture unspooled like yarn around them. Before long, it was just them in the void, and the distant smudge of the black star. It had regained its old size and become oddly distended, oblong, almost punctured. The blackness ran down as if it was leaking. I suppose that's it, said Akechi. Well done, everyone. I think this is the longest video I've done for this series, and for this whole fanfic. Guys, I have something to say, but I'll wait until all of this is over before I say it. Until then, see you all next weekend. Bye for now.